guys, quick video. Gonna be a little bit preachy, I think, and I'm gonna try and keep it from sounding that way, but I feel like it's gonna be that type of video. A couple weeks ago I did a video talking about Casey Hickox, the nurse who had a high risk factor for Ebola. You know, she went to Africa and was treating Ebola patients. She had a roommate over there, I believe, that had actually contracted Ebola, and then she came home and there was this big stink because she came back to the United States, had a fever, blah 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 blah. You guys remember the situation, and I basically did my video basically saying, hey, you know, as a decent human being, you know, if I were in her shoes, I would stay away from people that I cared about. I'd just go home, watch TV for a couple weeks, make sure I was fine, and then I would go back and, you know, live my life as usual. Wouldn't go around friends or family, just in case I wouldn't want to, because I have a high risk factor for this deadly disease. I wouldn't want to risk possibly being out and becoming symptomatic while I was around other people, so I'd just stay home for a couple weeks. And then I thought, basically, her refusing to do that was kind of a shitty thing to do as a human being, okay? Now, some people took that as though I was saying I wanted the government to force quarantine on her. That was not what I was saying at all, but it brought up some really good points, because about 10% of the people that watched the video disagreed with the idea that she should have stayed home. Now, again, some of them thought it was because I guess they thought I was saying they should force quarantine on her, but some of them started to bring up a lot of points about freedom and gun rights and all this stuff, and that actually brought up something that I had not thought about before, and that's what this video is kind of about. And that is this idea of freedoms and being a decent human being and being a responsible human being and being responsible with the freedoms that you have. And that's, I think that's an important thing, something that as a gun owner I certainly probably don't think about as much as I should, as somebody that goes around talking about how much, you know, I enjoy my freedoms and I fight for my freedoms. When it comes to actually being responsible about those freedoms and being a decent human being about those freedoms, sometimes I don't always talk about that as much. And this is one of those situations. This idea that she is a human being with her freedoms was not necessarily being responsible with her freedoms, at least not in a way that people could look at her as a good example of a decent human being. They looked at her as an example of somebody who was potentially putting them at risk. And that is kind of part of the social contract we make, and part of the social contract that our founding fathers kind of made with us when it came to giving us so much freedom. They understood that having that much freedom was also a responsibility, and it also revolved around being a decent human being. Now, they knew they had to do some things and keep some things in place that would kind of incentivize us to be decent human beings, but in general they were hoping that we would see this freedom as a way to be more responsible for ourselves, instead of having a government try and be responsible for us, or make laws and pass judgments on us that would force us to be more responsible and force us to be decent. They wanted to put that burden on us, and we have to take that burden seriously. Okay? As a gun owner here in Texas, if I have 10 acres of land, I can pretty much take out my rifle and shoot wherever I want. Okay? I can go out and shoot targets, do anything I want. And that is my right to do so. But at the same time, I wouldn't go to the edge of my land and start shooting across the border of that land, okay? Even though it's my right, technically, under the law, I can shoot wherever I want. But if I do some damage to somebody else's property or someone else, I am responsible for that. I am responsible. I'm liable for that on a monetary level, on a moral level. I am not being a decent human being if I do that, even though technically, under the law, I can go do that. So this is what I'm talking about here. Just because we have certain freedoms doesn't mean that we no longer have a responsibility to be a decent human being with those freedoms. And that's kind of the point I'm making here. And again, this is a point that I didn't even think about until I started getting into conversations with people. So again, I think as a gun owners, we need to think about this. We need to take responsibility for our freedoms and learn that those freedoms and those responsibilities revolve around just being decent human beings and doing what is right on a moral level. When we talk about morals all the time, especially a lot of these guys out here who are hardcore right-wing conservatives and are pro-gun, we talk about moral responsibilities. Well, that doesn't just apply to you know, abortion or gay marriage or whatever the hot topic of the day is. It applies to just everyday life. Just be a decent human being and be responsible with your freedoms, so that the government doesn't feel the need to step in and take those freedoms away from you. So anyway, that's it. I'm sure it came across as a little bit preachy, and I apologize for that, but wanted to throw that out there. Questions, comments, all that good stuff, leave them down below, and we will talk to you guys later. Thanks.